Tonight, we're doing something a little dangerous. We're going to look up. We're going to stare into the calm, infinite sky. The same sky our ancestors prayed to, painted, feared. And we're going to wait for it to turn against us. Because there was a day when it did. And when it did, it didn't whisper. It screamed. You'll see it. The white-hot light, the firestorm, the pressure wave that makes your bones rattle like dice in a god's hand. The air will taste like lightning and burnt stone. And then, nothing. You probably won't survive this. So, before you sink in and get cozy, take a second to tap that like button and subscribe. But only if this kind of slow-burning cosmic storytelling is your kind of thing. Now, ease the lights down low, let the silence settle in, and let's slip gently into tonight's journey, together. You're somewhere near what will one day be the Yucatan Peninsula, except it doesn't feel like Mexico. No resorts, no tequila, no sunscreen, just wet, swampy heat and the endless chatter of giant insects. It's 66 million years ago, and the Earth has no idea it's about to get punched in the face by space. You stand in a clearing surrounded by jungle. Above you, pterosaurs wheel lazily on thermal drafts. Thick vines strangle tree trunks. The air hums with prehistoric tension, and the occasional dinosaur roar echoing in the distance. Life is thriving. In fact, it's too quiet. A streak of light appears overhead. At first, it's beautiful. Then, it's unbearable. The Chicxulub impactor, a 7-mile-wide lump of cosmic indifference, is entering the atmosphere at more than 40,000 miles per hour. That's fast enough to fly from New York to Tokyo in under 5 minutes. It is not here for tea. The flash is so bright, it casts shadows backward. The sound doesn't come. Not yet. Because it's still outrunning its own scream. The moment of impact is unfilmable. There's nothing human language can do to describe the sensation of the Earth itself being punched hard enough to glow. The ocean under the rock flashes into steam. The crust liquefies. A crater the size of a major metropolitan area opens up like a hungry mouth. You're not looking at an explosion. You're looking through it. The shockwave arrives next. If you had ears, they'd rupture. If you had lungs, they'd collapse. But you don't, because you were vaporized a few seconds ago. But let's pretend. Let's pretend you survived. Let's say you're just far enough to still be standing. The air hasn't caught fire yet. You look up, big mistake, and watch chunks of Earth the size of office buildings flying into low orbit. Some won't return for hours. Others won't return at all. But most, they'll come back. And when they do, they'll bring the sky with them. Remember that feeling of standing too close to a campfire? Now imagine the entire sky turns into one. As the ejected debris re-enters the atmosphere, it superheats, creating a shell of infrared radiation that cooks the surface like an oven on broil. Forests ignite. Dinosaurs collapse mid-run, lungs cooked from the inside. A T-Rex you were admiring moments ago drops like a puppet with its strings cut, eyes wide, body smoldering, dignity incinerated. And this is just the beginning. Because Earth isn't just burning, it's breaking. The seismic shock ripples around the globe multiple times, snapping fault lines like twigs. Tsunamis taller than skyscrapers race across oceans, slamming into coastlines with such force, entire regions are erased before they realize the sea has left. Above all this, a mushroom cloud. Not nuclear, but close enough. It rises into the sky, carrying ash, soot, vaporized rock, and tiny particles of death. They spread around the globe, blotting out the sun, rewriting the weather, and casually pressing the off button on photosynthesis. Historians still argue whether the dinosaurs were already in decline, but that debate becomes more academic when 1 billion tons of sulfur hits the stratosphere like a blanket of ash. And what does sulfur do, class? It cools fast. The Earth begins to choke on its own atmosphere. Temperatures plummet, acid rainfall, plants die, food chains crumble like bad alibis. The long shadow of extinction stretches from the skies and settles onto everything with teeth, feathers, and hope. You find yourself walking through a field of silence. Everything is dead, dying, or desperately trying not to be. But somehow, something stirs. A twitch beneath the ash, a squeak in the darkness. A shadow slips into a burrow and waits. Mammals, those warm-blooded weirdos, are still alive. Barely. And they're watching the world reset. A cheeky voice in your head whispers, "Well, that escalated quickly." You exhale. You look up. The sky is dark now, not because it's night, but because it has nothing left to say. Except one thing. It's not over. Not by a long shot. The silence after the fire isn't peace. It's paralysis, like the planet has forgotten how to breathe. You're trudging through the aftermath now. The world is ash-colored and indecisive, stuck between ice and fire, death, and whatever tries to crawl out next. The air is wrong. You can feel it in your nose, in your lungs, in your blood. It's thick with sulfur, soot, and something older, something exhausted. The sky has turned a flat, jaundiced gray. No sunlight, no starlight, just a stubborn, smothering cloud cover that doesn't move. It's like Earth wrapped itself in a blanket and refuses to come out. You raise your face toward the gloom, and the rain begins. But this isn't rain. This is chemical retribution. It stings, it sizzles, it leaves white streaks on stone, on leaves, on your skin. Sulfuric acid, nitric acid, the fallout of vaporized rock and ocean colliding at temperatures that make magma look like soup. It drizzles down as tiny droplets of atmospheric vengeance, slow, methodical, and merciless. You duck beneath a half-burned tree. Its bark peels like wet paper. You hear a hiss as the acid kisses the wood. This isn't weather. This is Earth's immune system. Historians still argue whether this global acid rain was enough to sterilize inland lakes and coastal waters. But down here, under the dripping remnants of a blackened forest, it's not a theory. It's a slow, steady undoing. And just when you think you've adjusted, temperature crash. The sun hasn't been seen for weeks, maybe months. Photosynthesis is practically on strike. The Earth is cooling like a forgotten kettle. Tropical climates become temperate. Temperate becomes sub-zero. The shift isn't gradual, it's a whip crack. You pass by a cluster of hadrosaur skeletons. Their postures tell a story. One died curled around another, a juvenile. You stop. For just a moment, you wonder what it sounded like when they realized nothing green was growing anymore. The plants die first. No light, no chlorophyll, no sugar, no food. And what the plants don't kill, the famine finishes. The herbivores go next, slow, clumsy, and out of options. You see their shadows in the muddy ground, bones jutting like abandoned scaffolding. Then come the scavengers. Then come the scavengers of the scavengers. And then come the fungi. You start noticing them everywhere now. mushrooms sprouting from corpses, mildew crawling over what used to be bark, a wall of decay replacing what was once an empire of green. Fungal spores fill the air like a gentle apocalypse. And here's the strange part. Some scientists believe this fungal bloom helped shape the next chapter of life. Cold-blooded reptiles? They didn't fare well in the fungal winter. But warm-blooded mammals, they thrived. Our fevers saved us. Poetic, right? Mold ate the world, and mammals inherited what was left. You step over a fallen log and slip slightly, your boot catching on a soft, pulpy carpet of decomposing everything. It's not just a forest floor, it's a battlefield. You spot movement. Not big, just a flicker. A rodent-like creature scurries between roots, dragging a leaf into a burrow like it's hoarding treasure. You blink. It stares back. For a second, two survivors recognize each other. Then, it's gone. Above, the clouds pulse, thicker now, like they're trying to remember what sunlight used to feel like. You don't notice the volcanoes at first, but then the rumble begins. Distant, dull, like the earth clearing its throat. The Deccan Traps, a series of massive volcanic eruptions in what will someday be India, have joined the chaos. Some researchers argue these eruptions were already underway before the impact, and the asteroid simply pulled the trigger harder. Regardless, they're belching CO2 and SO2 into the already collapsing sky like it's a contest. You're now standing in a planetary pressure cooker. Acid rain, volcanic ash, and no light. Welcome to Earth's worst hangover. You wander into a marshland, or what used to be one. The water is oily, lifeless. The frogs are gone. The buzzing of insects has stopped. A lone dragonfly spirals past, wings coated in soot. It smacks into a tree and drops. You're witnessing the bottom of the food chain unraveling like a badly tied knot. With plankton dead in the oceans and plants dead on land, everything above them begins to starve, one tear at a time. You stop at the edge of a cliff where you can see the horizon in all directions. Fires still smolder, ash swirls in lazy eddies, and above it all, the sky is bruised, dark purple with streaks of copper. It's quiet. You hear yourself breathe. And in the silence, one simple, awful truth settles into your chest like lead. This is what almost dying looks like. Not dramatic, not fiery, just slow, decay, absence, collapse. But even now, even here, you notice something shifting. A patch of moss, green against all odds. A pair of bird-like feet scratching in the dirt. And somewhere, under the earth, a mammal gives birth in the dark. Life isn't dead, it's hiding, waiting. And when the sun returns, even if it takes years, it'll crawl back out. So will you. You're walking through a world trying very hard not to fall apart. The fires are mostly out now. The heat has drained from the sky. The clouds have broken just enough to let in a dull, disoriented light, like the sun is peeking through the curtain to ask, "Are we okay now?" Spoiler, we are not. But we're trying. You step into what used to be a jungle, now reduced to a skeletal framework of charred trunks and collapsed canopies. The ground crunches beneath your feet, not with leaves, but with ash and shattered bark. You're not sure if you're in a forest or a fossil. Yet, life has a habit of showing up to its own funeral. You spot it in small things first: moss edging a broken boulder, a sprig of fern unfurling through a crack in a blackened log, a single insect, something beetle-ish, limping across a rock like it just woke up from a bad dream. Recovery doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It tiptoes in, wearing someone else's clothes. And in that silence, something starts to stir. The mammals. They're everywhere now, skittering between rocks, digging beneath roots, curling in hollowed logs. They're not glamorous, they're not dominant, but they're alive. And alive, right now, is a superpower. You crouch down and spot a shrew-like creature, a multituberculate to be precise. Think prehistoric squirrel with insomnia. It's gnawing on a seed like it's auditioning for the role of next evolutionary step. It pauses to glare at you, then scampers into a burrow. You're not offended. That mammal might become your ancestor, and it doesn't have time for guests. Historians still argue whether mammals were already gaining traction before the impact, or if they simply got lucky afterward. But that debate misses the point, because now, with the dinosaurs gone and the food chains realigned, mammals begin to stretch. Literally, they grow larger, more diverse, more adventurous. They crawl, climb, swim, some even glide. The age of the overlooked is ending. The age of innovation is beginning. You take a breath, and for the first time in what feels like centuries, it doesn't taste like fire, just damp earth and something like potential. But it's not all cozy. You keep walking and stumble upon a half-flooded valley. Dead trees protrude from the water like accusing fingers, and floating between them, bodies. Not fresh, not intact, but still recognizable. You see the remnants of an ankylosaur, a walking tank now bloated and still. Its clubbed tail sticks out of the water at a stupid angle. Next to it, a small theropod lies half-submerged, its claws splayed, face frozen in some final moment of confusion. This is the part they never show in documentaries. Not the impact, not the extinction, but the long middle, the awkward transition, where the old world is still dying and the new world hasn't learned how to live yet. It's not exciting, it's not epic, it's muddy, smelly, quiet, and absolutely necessary. Because extinction isn't just a door that slams shut, it's a hallway, a long flickering hallway full of echoing footsteps and broken lights and mold on the walls. And in that hallway, strange things begin to emerge. You see it in the plants. Angiosperms, flowering species, begin to retake the land. They grow fast, they seed faster, and they're incredibly pushy. Within a few thousand years, they carpet the landscape, reshaping entire ecosystems. The bugs, too, are back. Not in swarms, not yet, but the occasional flash of iridescent wing, the tiny buzz of a pollinator returning to a job it didn't think it'd have again. You smile as a bee hovers near your head, then veers off toward a stubborn flower pushing through a pile of bones. And then, the birds. At first, you think it's a pterosaur, but no, the wings beat differently, lighter, feathers instead of leathery skin. It lands nearby, small, nervous, more lizard than dove, but the resemblance is there. It chirps, an unsure sound, like it's testing the atmosphere for music again. You want to reach out, but it flits away. Fair. It survived a global apocalypse. It owes you nothing. But in that brief encounter, something clicks into place. This is what a reset looks like. You don't always rebuild with strength. Sometimes you rebuild with whatever's still breathing, even if it's weird and squishy and small enough to fit in a pocket. You sit down on a rock, let the breeze, cool, not cold, brush against your face. There's no thunder now, no falling sky, just a sound of water trickling through a newly carved stream bed. The earth, for the first time in a long time, is quiet. And in that silence, something settles in your chest. Maybe it's not over. Not for you, not for them, not for the planet. It's just chapter 2, and it's going to be a weird one. The ground beneath your feet is a liar. Looks solid, trustworthy, like it's always been there, like it always will be, but you know better now. Because the earth keeps secrets, and those secrets are round. You're in the middle of a broad, sun-baked plain. It seems ordinary. Grass whispering in the breeze, scattered rocks, the occasional bird overhead. But beneath this meadow, violence. You don't see it until you climb a low ridge and look down. It's not obvious. Nature's been busy with the eraser, but the shape is still there. A perfect ring of warped terrain, like someone punched the planet with an invisible fist and left a bruise, not a scar, a dent. This is a crater. Not Chicxulub, not famous, just one of many. One of hundreds. You crouch and run your hand across the rock. Smooth, but wrong. Glassy inclusions hide in the cracks, impactite, formed when stone melts under sudden, unbearable pressure. You pick up a piece, it sparkles. Cosmic glitter. The result of a visitor from space who forgot to knock. Historians still argue how many craters remain undiscovered, hidden under forests, oceans, ice caps. Some guess hundreds, others thousands. But they all agree what we see is only a fraction. The Earth is a dartboard, and space never runs out of darts. You walk on. Now you're in the Namib Desert, standing inside the Rotterdam crater, 2.5 kilometers across, mostly filled with sand now. But once, a fireball landed here. It vaporized the ground, hurled debris over the horizon, and etched its signature into the crust. You imagine standing here 3.7 million years ago when the sky tore open. The wind screamed, the sand turned to glass, and the air said, "Not today, mammals." But we were lucky. No people, no witnesses, just geology keeping notes. You move again to Arizona. Meteor crater. This one's different, fresh, crisp, photogenic, a mile wide and nearly 600 feet deep. It's so well preserved it feels fake, like a movie set. 50,000 years ago, a nickel-iron asteroid the size of a school building decided to stop by. It hit the desert floor at around 26,000 miles per hour. The result? A hole, and a very short day for any local wildlife. It's oddly quiet here. No cities, no crowds, just wind over rock and the distant echo of something uninvited. You sit on the edge of the crater and feel a kind of déjà vu. Not because you've seen this before, but because your bones remember it. This isn't a one-time event. This is a pattern. You keep walking. Now in South Africa, Vredefort, the largest confirmed impact structure on Earth. 2 billion years old. So old, in fact, that most of it's eroded away. But the shape remains, like a ghost pressing its face through a thin sheet. Then to Canada, Sudbury Basin, over 200 miles across. Not just an impact site, but now a mining hub. We pull nickel and copper from its depths, unaware we're harvesting the remains of an ancient apocalypse. The irony isn't lost on you. Digging wealth from destruction. Nice touch. You pass through craters so subtle they barely register, until you look at the rock. Shocked quartz, melt layers, geochemical whispers. The Earth remembers every hit, even if we forget. There's a fringe theory you pick up along the way, that a large percentage of deep-sea craters are still undiscovered, that our ignorance is simply a matter of depth, not absence, and that if we mapped the ocean floor in enough detail, we'd find a graveyard, a planetary bruise garden. You stop for a moment and stare at the sea. It looks calm, blue, safe, but somewhere down there is the next Chicxulub, buried, sleeping, or worse, forming. And then, Tunguska. You're in Siberia now, 1908, not millions of years ago, barely a century. The trees are tall, dense, mosquitoes swarm in the summer heat. There's no warning, just a sudden, blinding flash, a column of fire. Then, boom. The air slaps you, the forest bends, an invisible pressure wave flattens 80 million trees across 800 square miles. Deer vaporize, hunters are thrown from chairs, reindeer herders blink and realize the world has changed. You walk through the impact zone, no crater, just devastation. A carpet of trees all facing away from a central point, like they were blown out by a god who sneezed. And at the center, Nothing. The rock exploded mid-air, 5 to 10 kilometers above the surface. Airburst, no impact, just energy, 1,000 times stronger than the Hiroshima bomb. And no one saw it coming. Historians still argue whether it was an asteroid, a comet fragment, or something stranger. Fringe theorists have offered everything from alien spacecraft to secret weapons tests. But whatever it was, it reminded us the sky doesn't need to land to kill. You pause on a stump, surrounded by silence. The wind picks up, trees groan softly, and for a moment it feels like the sky is watching again, waiting. Because these events, they're not past tense, they're recurring. They're a rhythm. You stand and keep moving, because somewhere out there, another rock is already on its way. The year is 2013, and the world is watching Russia again. But not for politics this time. You're in Chelyabinsk, a city better known for metallurgy than meteors. It's a cold February morning. People are brushing snow off windshields, trudging to work, eating bland toast, and quietly hating winter. And then, without warning, the sky explodes. A white streak carves across the atmosphere. No announcement, no foreplay, just raw, blazing light arcing over the Urals. For a split second, it looks like the sun got bored of subtlety and decided to drop in unannounced. Then comes the shockwave. Windows shatter, sirens wail, dash cams capture the chaos in crystal clarity. People stumbling, blinking, cursing, diving for cover as glass rains down. Over 1,600 injured, dozens hospitalized, and the meteor never even touched the ground. Airburst again. About 30 kilometers up, the rock detonated with the energy of 400 to 500 kilotons of TNT, roughly 30 times more powerful than Hiroshima. All from a rock that was just 20 meters across. 20 meters! You could park it in a swimming pool. And yet, it lit the sky like Judgment Day. You walk through the aftermath. Snow crusted in broken glass, dented cars, shards of ceiling tiles lying like dead birds. Most people are okay, but their eyes are wide, shaky, like something in their worldview just cracked. Because it did. They looked up and saw the universe wink. And the message was clear. You are not safe. Historians still argue whether events like Chelyabinsk are rare or just rarely caught on camera, because, fun fact, Earth is pelted with about 17 meteors big enough to reach the surface every day. Most burn up, some splash into oceans, a few hit dirt and don't make headlines. But Chelyabinsk wasn't rare. It was just a reminder. You continue your walk, and now you're standing in a laboratory, not outdoors. Indoors, somewhere sterile and humming with soft fluorescence. Scientists are gathered around a monitor, watching telescopic footage. A little white dot moving against the backdrop of stars. It's an asteroid, 99942 Apophis, discovered in 2004. For a while, it made headlines because initial calculations suggested it might hit Earth in 2029. Spoiler, it won't. Not this time. But at one point, the odds were 1 in 37. Now, 1 in 37 may not sound terrifying until you remember how often you get on a plane with worse odds of turbulence and still clench the seat. Apophis is big, around 340 meters across. That's about the size of 3 football fields taped together and given a grudge. If it did hit Earth, it would release energy equivalent to over 1,000 megatons of TNT. That's extinction adjacent. Enough to take out a country or start a very bad day for everyone else. You stare at the screen. The asteroid just floats there, silent, indifferent, ancient. It doesn't care that you named it, doesn't care you're watching. And that's the part that gets you. These things aren't evil, they're not villains. They're just physics. You step outside, and now you're at NASA, or JPL, or some off-the-books observatory that smells like coffee and existential dread. You listen as scientists describe the planetary defense programs, telescopes scanning the skies, simulations of deflection strategies, kinetic impactors, maybe nukes. You hear terms like gravity tractor and Yarkovsky effect. You nod like you understand. Then someone says it. The quiet truth. We don't have a complete map. You blink. We've cataloged less than 50% of the near-Earth objects over 140 meters wide, and even less for the smaller ones. Ah, so we're basically blind. You sit with that for a moment, that our best minds, our smartest computers, are still playing interstellar hide-and-seek, that something could already be coming, and we wouldn't know until it made the atmosphere glow. The fringe theorists love this moment. They talk about Planet X, about dark comets with weird orbits, about rogue black holes and galactic snipers. But honestly, you don't need French theories to feel vulnerable. Reality is terrifying enough. Because if Chelyabinsk had entered at a slightly different angle, if it had exploded directly over the city, if it had been twice as large, the headlines would have been different. The funerals would have been real. You walk away from the control room, back into the open air. It's night now, cold, clear. Stars shine overhead like tiny, smug pinpricks. You try not to look for motion. You fail. Because once you've seen the sky rip open, you never trust it again. But you also don't stop living. That's the thing about humans. We know the danger, we know the odds, and we still build cities, still raise kids, still fall in love under a sky that could, on any given Tuesday, turn to fire. There's something beautiful about that. Something reckless, something defiant. You smile, shrug, and keep walking, because tomorrow is just another spin of the roulette wheel. By now, you've probably started glancing up a little more than usual. That's normal, healthy even. After all, the sky used to mean safety, light, hope, gods. We gave it personalities, names. We made it romantic. But the more you learn, the more it starts to feel like a loaded gun resting on the table. Still, you keep walking. Tonight, you're in the Middle East, somewhere between the Euphrates and the Tigris, not far from where humans first planted wheat and decided cities were a vibe. It's the dawn of civilization. You're wearing sandals, not by choice. It's 5,000 years ago, and the air smells like dust and goat. People around you are building things out of mud bricks, domesticating animals, inventing taxes, writing, and awkward small talk. And then something flashes. Across the sky, loud, bright, a roar, but not thunder, a streak of white fire trailing smoke. It's there and gone in seconds. People scream, some fall to their knees, others run inside, as if mud walls can save them from the judgment of the cosmos. The impact doesn't come. This one misses. But the idea lands hard. And so it begins, our long, complicated relationship with celestial tantrums. Historians still argue whether this was a meteor airburst or just a terrifying close pass. What's clear is that stories emerge, in Sumerian cuneiform, in oral traditions, in ritual. The sky, once a passive dome of stars, is now a character with moods. And in 312 AD, it gets theatrical again. You're standing beside Constantine the Great. Yes, that Constantine, emperor, general, soon to be Christian in chief. You're riding with his army near the Milvian Bridge. Battle looms. Soldiers are anxious. And then, mid-afternoon, the sun is blotted out, not by clouds, but by something blazing, something unfamiliar. Some say it's a cross made of light. Some say it's a fiery symbol with Greek letters. Constantine stares upward, wide-eyed, then orders everyone to paint that symbol on their shields. You can almost hear the cosmic narrator sigh. Well, that escalated. The army wins, Christianity spreads, and the moment becomes legend. But was it divine intervention? A comet? An atmospheric phenomenon? Still debated. And somewhere, you feel the sky chuckling, because it keeps doing this to everyone. You wander further forward in time, now standing outside the court of Genghis Khan. It's the early 1200s. The Mongol Empire is just revving up, and suddenly, across the Asian sky, a meteor, bright, silent, chilling. The Khan's advisors panic. Is it an omen, a curse, a sign to stop the expansion? Spoiler, Genghis doesn't stop anything. But the records remain. Scrolls mentioning the fire in the heavens, meteors as divine messengers, as insults, as cosmic punctuation. And it doesn't stop with emperors. You land in 1490, China, the city of Qingyang. An event occurs that becomes something of a historical Rorschach test. Records say stones fell from the sky, thousands are killed, buildings crushed, panic, horror. A meteor storm? A localized airburst? Scholars still can't agree. Some say it's myth, others say it's misunderstood science. Either way, the people of Qingyang didn't have the luxury of footnotes. You walk among their ruins, look into their sky, and see yourself. Because no matter the era, bronze, iron, digital, we all have the same instinct: look up and assign meaning. The ancient Greeks thought meteors were signs from the gods. In Norse mythology, they were sparks from the forge of the sky. In Aztec tradition, they heralded disaster. And in the 1800s, they became entertainment. You find yourself in a Parisian salon, sipping something expensive, while a gentleman with impressive sideburns explains how comets are just celestial vapor trails and certainly not a threat. Meanwhile, a newspaper headline warns of doom by Halley's Comet. In 1910, Halley's tail passed close enough to Earth that people worried about being poisoned by toxic comet gas. Some even bought comet pills to protect themselves. Spoiler, they were chalk. But still, the fear was real. The sense that something big, beautiful, and terrible could fall from the sky and erase everything. That never went away. It just changed outfits. You step into the modern age. Telescopes, satellites, international databases. We track thousands of near-Earth objects now, assigning them names, plotting their trajectories, comforting ourselves with decimal point probabilities. But beneath it all, the same flicker of unease, that no matter how advanced we get, we're still standing on a rock, under a bigger rock, praying that the sky stays quiet. And sometimes, it doesn't. You stop walking. You look up. No comets tonight, just stars. But you know better now. You know that one of them could move, one of them could shift, and that one little course correction, barely noticeable across millions of miles, could send it spiraling into our atmosphere. You breathe and keep walking, because humans have always walked, even when the sky was on fire. There's a place in your bones that remembers heat. Not sun on your face heat. Not cozy fireplace heat. We're talking sky is melting heat. The kind that doesn't just burn, it vaporizes, turns oceans into clouds and clouds into acid. The kind of heat that makes stone ripple and bone vanish. And tonight, you're walking straight into it. Welcome to the day the world tried to cook itself. You're back at the impact site, Chicxulub, but this time, you're not watching it fall. You're living in the moments after. The asteroid struck the Yucatan Peninsula at over 40,000 miles per hour. It punched a hole in the Earth so deep, the crust bounced. The impact released energy equivalent to 10 billion Hiroshima bombs, give or take. But the real horror wasn't the crater. It was the afterglow. You stare up. The atmosphere is filled with tiny particles of molten rock, ejecta they call it. Debris launched so high it exited the atmosphere and rained back down, superheated by re-entry. It doesn't fall like snow. It falls like a billion shooting stars at once. Each grain screaming down at thousands of degrees, lighting the sky, heating the surface, all of it. You touch a rock. It's warm, then hot, then, oh, right, it's cooking you. You run, and you're not alone. Dinosaurs sprint past you, feathered, scaled, panicked. Small mammals scurry into holes. Insects burrow deeper. Fish dive. Anything that can hide, hides. Because the global temperature is spiking fast. Estimates vary, but many scientists believe the surface of the Earth reached oven temperatures, literally baking the topsoil for several hours after the impact. Long enough to ignite forests, long enough to kill anything exposed. This wasn't a blast. It was a broil. Historians still argue about the exact mechanics. Was it thermal radiation from the ejecta? A global firestorm caused by flammable plant matter? Both? Neither? You don't care. You're too busy trying not to become charcoal. You stumble into a cave. Darkness swallows you. Your breath echoes against stone. The ground is damp. The air cooler. Safer. But outside, the world is on fire. Not metaphorically, literally. You peek out. Flames ripple across the treetops, leap from branch to branch. Entire ecosystems go up like they were soaked in gasoline. And the smoke, thick, black, and relentless, rises in columns so tall they block out the sun for months to come. You sit, you wait. Hours pass, then days. The sky darkens, the fires rage, and eventually the light dims. Not because the sun has set, but because it's gone, blocked, obscured. The firestorm seeded its own shadow. And now, the opposite begins, the freeze. You crawl from the cave days later, only to find frost where flame once ruled. The burned trees are now white with ice. The rivers steam and hiss, shocked by their own cold. It's whiplash. Global temperatures drop dramatically in the weeks following the impact. No sunlight, no warmth, just volcanic ash, soot, and ejecta particles forming a shroud around the planet. Photosynthesis? Cancelled. Rain cycles? Interrupted. Life? Paused. You crunch through the frostbitten forest, stepping over blackened corpses, reptilian, avian, mammalian, all caught in a thermal trap they didn't see coming. And then, something weirder. You find a field of glass. Not sand, not snow. Glass. It sparkles under the pale light, shards and teardrops of greenish-black stone, tektites, formed when rock was vaporized and rained back down in molten droplets. You pick one up. It's cool now, but it remembers. It remembers a heat so intense it reshaped geology, a scream in stone form. And it's not alone. You walk through a landscape covered in them, littered like confetti from the worst party ever thrown. Farther on, you find a lake. Its surface is oddly still, not frozen, but stagnant. The color? Not right. Algae bloom, but not the good kind. Red tides, toxins, bacteria run amok in a world without balance. The oceans, once oxygen-rich and teeming with life, have turned sluggish, acidic. Dead zones spread like bruises across the map. And the air? Still not safe. High levels of sulfur dioxide linger. Acid rain continues to fall, stripping leaves, etching stone, poisoning ponds. You watch a group of small lizards fight over a scrap of something unidentifiable, then keel over minutes later. You're seeing evolution at gunpoint. It's not survival of the fittest. It's survival of the lucky. You climb a hill. From up here, you can see the world trying to restart itself. A few green shoots, a bird call. Somewhere, a stream still flows. But it's quieter than it should be. Quieter than it's ever been. Roughly 75% of all species are gone. Not just dinosaurs. Ammonites, gone. Pterosaurs, gone. Plankton species, decimated. Even tiny marine invertebrates that had been around for hundreds of millions of years, just poof. You sit on the hilltop, watching the wind carry soot across a dim sky. It's almost poetic, if it weren't so final. But then, something buzzes near your ear. A bug. Just one. You smile, because if that made it, maybe we will too.
The world doesn't recover all at once. There's no triumphant soundtrack, no slow zoom into a lone survivor standing in the sunrise. No. What follows the Great Extinction is a kind of eerie, evolutionary purgatory. And you're walking through it. It's about 100,000 years after Chicxulub now. Most of the flames are gone. The skies are clearing, cautiously, but the earth still feels tender, like a burn victim blinking into the light. The dinosaurs are ghosts, rumored in the rocks, painted in the strata, spoken about in evolutionary whispers. But something else is stirring. You step through a scrubby forest, still patchy with regrowth. Shrubs twist out of broken soil. Mushrooms cluster around half-buried bones. In the canopy above, something rustles. You look up. Feathers. Not birds. Not quite. These are bird-adjacent, avian-adjacent. The kind of creatures that haven't picked a lane yet. Clawed wings, beaks with teeth. Feathers that don't look aerodynamic, just hopeful. You watch one fumble through the branches. It's trying. That's the mood now. Earth isn't rebuilding like a team with a game plan. It's more like a garage sale. Bits of leftover biology getting duct taped together, hoping something sticks. Historians still argue how long it took biodiversity to bounce back. Some say a few 100,000 years. Others suggest it took 10 million. What they all agree on is this: it got weird. You're now in what paleontologists call a disaster fauna phase. That's the charming term for ecosystems made up of things that survived, but don't entirely belong. You see it in the mammals, still small but bold, no longer hiding in holes. They're exploring, stretching. Some are starting to get long snouts, others sharp claws. One, disturbingly, has glider flaps. You name him Gary. Gary flaps off a branch and immediately crashes into a fern. Classic Gary. And then, there are the reptiles. You spot a few croc-like creatures basking by a river, but they're off somehow. Legs slightly longer, snouts thinner, tails almost whip-like. Evolution is experimenting in public. Some die out quickly, some stick around for a few more epochs, but everything is temporary now. This is Earth's weird phase. You wander through it like a tourist in an alternate dimension. Everything is familiar, but off by about 20%. A tree that looks like a pine, but smells like vinegar. A beetle that hums a note you can't name. A flower that opens at night and closes when touched, like it's sick of your nonsense. You crouch beside a stream and run your hand through the water.
It's clearer than it's been in eons. You see fish, tiny, translucent, new. Their ancestors didn't survive. These are reboots. And it hits you. This isn't just regrowth, it's reinvention. Earth isn't trying to recreate the past, it's sketching a new future. Every leaf, every scale, every nervous mammal in the underbrush, it's all part of a grand experiment, a planetary brainstorming session. And no one knows which idea will win, except maybe the birds. They're getting bolder. You spot one with bright feathers, actual color, darting through the trees like it owns the place. It doesn't, but give it 60 million years. Then, something catches your eye. A large, sluggish creature moving through the brush. You freeze. It's not a dinosaur, not exactly, but it's big, heavy-set, moves like it remembers being prey. Its head turns, and you see the faint hint of a beak. Some call these stem birds, others dino birds. Whatever the name, they're walking reminders that extinction isn't a clean break. It's a long, messy fade, and some things linger. You follow it at a distance. Its tail swings low, dragging through the ash. Its footsteps are soft, like it's not sure it belongs here. You know the feeling. Eventually, it vanishes into the mist, and you're left alone. But not for long, because suddenly, the ground shakes. Not violently, not Chicxulub style, just a rumble, like the earth shifting in its sleep. You hear a distant roar, not of an animal, but of time. Mountains rising, continents drifting. This isn't just biological evolution, it's planetary. The Gulf of Mexico, still warm, still healing. The Atlantic, widening by centimeters every year. India, it's headed straight for Asia, and one day it's going to crash hard enough to make the Himalayas. You're standing in the middle of a planet that's still very much under construction. And then, rain. Soft at first, then harder. It comes in sideways gusts, soaking the soil, trickling down your collar. The water carries ash and minerals into new places, new soils, new life. You tilt your head back and let it wash over you. This rain isn't fiery, it's forgiving. You smile. Because even after all this destruction, after the screaming sky and the boiling oceans and the long, strange quiet, Earth still knows how to make something grow. A sprig of moss, a half-formed frog, Gary now trying to glide again and hitting a tree. You laugh. And for the first time in what feels like 100 million years, the world laughs with you.
Flash forward to 1908, Siberia. You're trudging through marshland in the Tunguska region, and already the landscape feels like it's holding its breath. Sparse trees, swarms of bugs, and silence so deep it hisses in your ears. And then, it happens. The air changes, like something enormous is moving above you, but you can't see it, not at first. Then a blue-white fireball slices the sky. You blink, but it's still coming. It doesn't look real. It looks like someone tried to weld the atmosphere shut. It burns silently for a few seconds, then crack! A boom rips the sky apart. The ground ripples beneath your feet like a thrown rug. Trees twist and snap. Heat smashes your skin before your brain even finishes saying, "Oh no." You hit the dirt. The air goes quiet. Then another shockwave. Another. It feels endless. When you finally sit up, the forest is gone. 80 million trees flattened like matchsticks. A fan-shaped pattern radiates outward, with the epicenter scorched and silent. You walk through it slowly, boots crunching on ash and splinters. No crater,
no impact hole, just absence. The Tunguska event remains one of the most bewildering impact mysteries in modern history. A roughly 50 to 60 meter object, likely a stony asteroid or a comet fragment, entered the atmosphere at around 33,000 miles per hour, then exploded 5 to 10 kilometers above the ground. A mid-air detonation. Historians still argue over what exactly caused it. Some say a comet nucleus, others an asteroid with a weird composition. A few French theorists suggest antimatter, mini black holes, even alien detonation tech. But science leans asteroid, just one that didn't feel like touching down. And thank goodness, because if it had struck a few hours later, the city of St. Petersburg would have been obliterated. A casual extinction teaser. You kneel in the flattened forest. A strange calm rests over the zone. It's like nature paused here, left a reminder, a message written in fallen trees. Remember what the sky can do. And yet, outside of Russia, it was barely noticed. News didn't spread the way it does now. There was no viral footage, no 24-hour panic. Just a mystery in the woods, left to be untangled by explorers decades later. You're standing among those early expeditions now. Geologists, botanists, the occasional military man. They photograph the pattern, measure the blast radius, note the direction of fallen trees. They find radiation spikes, magnetic anomalies. Still no crater. Still no impactor. Just math. You wander with them. Watch them gather stories from local Evenki people, tales of fire gods, of the sky breaking apart, of animals running for days. Stories that sound like myth but line up eerily with the science. You sit under a stunted pine and chew on a thought. Tunguska wasn't even big. By cosmic standards, it was barely a love tap, and it still flattened a forest the size of a major city. You picture the asteroid as it streaked in, spinning, breaking, bleeding energy. Atmospheric pressure squeezed it until it burst in a thermal tantrum. If it had held together, you shake your head. There wouldn't be stories. There wouldn't be anything. You walk again. This time, it's nighttime. You're staring at the stars, those indifferent pinpricks again, and one of them moves. For a second, you flinch. Expectation has rewired your brain. But it's just a satellite. Probably. Still, the fear is sticky. Because Tunguska was a dry run, a dress rehearsal, a reminder that even in the quiet stretches of history, the universe likes to test its aim. You pass through modern Tunguska now, a weird tourist site. Gift shops, mini museums, a monument shaped like a falling star. People sell meteorite chunks that might not even be from here. It's kitschy and faintly absurd. But it's also proof we need to make sense of things. We turn catastrophe into story, story into memory, and memory into warning. You look at the trees, many regrown now, standing proud, but the pattern still lingers. From the air, the radial burst is visible. Nature doesn't forget. Neither should we. You sit for a long time, breathing the cold air, listening to the wind creak through the newer forest. The stars glitter overhead. They seem closer now. Not comforting, just watching. Because Tunguska didn't have to happen where it did. It could have landed anywhere. And if the sky ever feels like practicing again, next time might not be so generous. You're back in the present now. Well, close enough. Satellites blink overhead. You've got signal bars. Civilization hums in the background, pretending it's in control. But tonight, you're in a telescope array facility, somewhere dry, high elevation, quiet enough that even your thoughts feel loud. You're surrounded by machines, massive lenses, humming servers, chilled coffee mugs, and one constant motion, the sky scrolling past on monitors, frame by frame, second by second. It's called sky surveying, and right now, it's humanity's most humble form of self-defense. You sit with the scientists, bleary-eyed, enthusiastic, underpaid, and watch as they catalog near-Earth objects, NEOs, rocks, some small enough to miss, some big enough to matter. You sip coffee. They sip terror, because one of the screens is showing a dot, and that dot has changed trajectory. You lean in. No panic yet. But a few eyebrows are raised, someone recalculates, someone else checks the minor planet center. You listen. They're talking about a rock the size of a football stadium, newly discovered, estimated to pass within 20,000 miles of Earth in a few weeks. That's closer than some satellites. You swallow hard. No one screams, they just start doing math. Very quickly. Historians still argue whether early impact risk modeling was accurate or mostly optimistic guesswork dressed in equations. But now, things are better, slightly. We've got the LSST coming online soon, the Vera Rubin Observatory. We've got infrared scopes like NEOWISE, and plans for space-based systems that can spot dark asteroids, those tricky, coal-colored death pebbles that don't reflect light. But the truth? We're still mostly blind, like trying to dodge bullets with a blindfold and a spreadsheet. You step outside the facility. Night air, crisp, sharp. You look up, not just at the stars this time, but at the gaps between them, the blind spots. Somewhere out there is the next big one. We haven't seen it yet, but it's seen us. You hike a little. Now you're in an operations room, not for a telescope, but for defense. Planetary defense. Yes, that's a real thing. A small team of specialists monitor possible impact scenarios. They're engineers, physicists, people who use phrases like delta-V budgets and orbital insertion windows like they're ordering lunch. You sit in on a simulation. Scenario: mid-size asteroid, 3 months out, high probability of impact. Location: coastal Southeast Asia. Estimated energy: 300 megatons. The plan? A kinetic impactor. Fancy term for let's hit it really hard. They talk about DART, the Double Asteroid Redirection Test. Remember that? NASA smacked a spacecraft into a tiny moonlet in 2022 just to see if we could nudge something in space. It worked, sort of. Historians still debate how scalable the tech is. Could we do it with a bigger rock? What if it's rubble pile instead of solid stone? What if it's already on the way? You raise a hand, tentatively. So, do we have nukes for this? A few heads turn. One engineer shrugs. Technically, yes, but it's not Plan A. You nod, because if we're reaching for Plan N, things have already gone sideways. Back outside, you're walking again, and you start noticing the symbols carved into the world. Not just the craters, but the math. Impact probabilities etched into policy, global agencies drafting what-if protocols, emergency broadcasts that could interrupt your Tuesday rerun to say, hey, heads up, we've got a space rock problem. There's even a whole rating system, the Torino scale, ranks potential impact events from 0, no risk, to 10, global catastrophe. Chelyabinsk, a 0. Apophis used to be a 4. Chicxulub, a straight-up 10. You glance at your phone, just to check. No alerts. Yet. But you're aware now, not just of the craters, but of the close calls, the near misses that didn't make headlines. Like 2019 OK, an asteroid the size of a skyscraper that zipped past Earth just 45,000 miles away. It was discovered a day before it flew by. You heard that right. 1 day. Imagine going to bed with 0 asteroid-related concerns and waking up to, oh, by the way, we almost got extincted yesterday. And here's the kicker. That happens more than we like to admit, because the universe doesn't care about press releases. You keep walking. Now you're in a city, any city. Neon lights, sidewalks sticky with soda, people too busy looking down at screens to ever notice the sky. You think of what it would look like if one showed up now. A streak of light, a slow build, then silence, then screaming. How would they react? Would they panic or keep scrolling? Some would tweet. Some would film it. Some would look up for the very first time. You walk among them, not as a prophet of doom, but as a student of probability. You know the odds aren't zero. You know the past isn't past. It's precedent. And the future? Still out there, spinning, waiting. Somewhere, a rock is moving a fraction of a degree off course, a barely perceptible wobble that, given time and math, could lead it straight to us. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. And when it comes, if it comes, we'll face it the way we always do. With nervous jokes, with bad decisions, with brilliant science, and dumb luck. Because that's the human way. You smirk and keep walking. You don't hear the end of the world. At least, not at first. You see it. A flicker in the corner of your eye, a shadow crossing the sun, a wrongness in the shape of the sky. You're standing in the American Midwest, today, and on the horizon, something new is rising. It looks like a sunrise, but it's the wrong direction. Too fast, too bright. You blink. Your brain does its best to wrap this in something familiar. A missile test? A flare? A TikTok prank? Nope. It's a meteor. And it's incoming. You stand frozen as it rips across the sky. The color is somewhere between lightning and copper. It screams like God forgot to oil the hinges on the universe. And then, just before impact, nothing. It explodes mid-air. Again. This time, not Tunguska, not Chelyabinsk, but now and here. The shockwave takes 30 seconds to arrive, but when it does, it's biblical. Windows shatter, car alarms wail, birds vanish, the ground jumps like a startled animal. You fall, and so does the world. Let's rewind, because while that was fictional, for now, it's also not impossible. In 2013, over the skies of Chelyabinsk, Russia, a meteor the size of a house entered the atmosphere at 42,000 miles per hour. It exploded about 30 kilometers above ground with the energy of 500 kilotons of TNT, more than 30 times the Hiroshima bomb. And no one saw it coming. Zero warning. The world only found out when dash cams lit up and glass rained from the sky. You've seen the footage. If not, you've felt it by now. A city, awake and busy, flashed white, blinked, and then collapsed into chaos. And that's the lesson here. We don't always need the dinosaur killers to disrupt civilization. Sometimes, all it takes is a rock the size of a school bus and the right trajectory. Historians still argue about whether Chelyabinsk was a one-in-a-century event, or whether we're grossly underestimating how often the atmosphere eats space debris. The truth lies somewhere in the rubble. You're walking through a simulation center now, post-Chelyabinsk. Engineers are recalibrating sensors. Government officials are quietly updating emergency plans. Most people move on. You don't. You go looking for other close calls. You find them. In 1972, a meteor skimmed Earth's atmosphere, entered over Utah, exited over Canada, never touched down, just said hello and kept going. In 2002, a football field-sized asteroid passed within a third of the moon's distance. We saw it after the flyby. And then there's Apophis. Discovered in 2004, it was initially thought to have a 2.7% chance of hitting Earth in 2029. Spoiler, it won't. NASA ruled it out. But it will pass very close, just 19,000 miles away, inside the orbit of some satellites. You stare at simulations of its path, a big potato-shaped rock doing a victory lap. And suddenly, everything feels precarious again. You're in a university lecture hall now. The professor is showing impact models, big screens, charts, sound design for maximum stress. Notice how airburst pressure waves interact with urban infrastructure, she says, pointing to simulations of glass-walled skyscrapers shattering like sugar sculptures. You raise your hand. What if it hit water? She nods. Then we get tsunamis, saltwater vapor, ocean acidification. You lower your hand. Neat. She smiles grimly and adds, but don't worry, the odds are small. You glance around the room. Everyone's nodding, but no one's comforted. Because even low odds, given enough time, become reality. You step out of the lecture hall into a park, kids playing, dogs barking, a couple arguing about iced coffee, and overhead, the sky. Quiet. Beautiful. You sit on a bench and wonder, how many of our most peaceful moments would evaporate in a flash? How long would it take for everything, bank accounts, traffic laws, online followings, to mean nothing? You take out your phone. No alerts. Still here. Still breathing. Still waiting. You open a weather app. No mention of meteors. We only forecast the things we expect. But the sky? The sky owes us nothing. It doesn't send warnings. It just moves. Impossibly vast, indifferently ancient, and occasionally interested. You close the app, pocket the phone, and keep walking. Because what else can you do? The sky once rained metal, fire, and screaming. And one day, without invitation or apology, it might again.
So, what exactly is a big one? What's the threshold where a flying space rock goes from harmless shooting star to existential crisis with a sound effect? You're about to find out. Tonight, you're standing in front of a wall, one that runs the length of a museum exhibit. It's covered with glass, and behind it, there's a lineup of cosmic suspects, meteorites, real ones. Charred, heavy, weirdly shaped. Some no bigger than your fist, others the size of beach balls. Every single one survived a fall from space. You pick one up. It's dense, heavier than it looks. Iron-nickel composite, cold despite the indoor air. A piece of the universe that didn't just visit, it slammed into our planet and stayed. You walk down the row. Each meteorite has a story. Some lit up skies, others ended them. And at the far end, a chunk of something darker, angular, scarred. It's from the Vredefort's impact site, South Africa, 2 billion years ago. Let that sink in. The Vredefort's crater is one of the oldest and largest confirmed impact structures on Earth. Diameter? Around 186 miles. That's like hitting a continent with a planet. You blink, the scale is incomprehensible. And yet, you're here, alive, because time and evolution are stubborn. Historians still debate the original size of the impactor. Some say it was at least 10 kilometers across, maybe larger. It struck when Earth was young, mostly microbial. Life didn't have much to destroy yet. Lucky, right? You keep moving. Now you're standing at Sudbury Basin, Canada. Another relic, another impact zone, roughly 1.8 billion years old. Not quite as large as Vredefort, but still massive, about 81 miles across. And this one? It left behind metal. The impact churned the crust, cooked the mantle, and left veins of nickel, copper, and platinum group elements that we mine today. Yeah, your car battery might contain traces of an apocalypse. You step into the next exhibit, Chicxulub. We've already walked that crater together, but now you see it from space, a satellite image showing the ringed basin beneath the Gulf of Mexico. It's still there, still watching. You close your eyes, and when you open them, you're no longer in a museum. You're in space,
orbiting Earth. Below you, the planet spins, blue and green and white, alive and unaware. And coming toward it, a rock. Slow at first, then faster, a monster, kilometers wide. You feel the chill of inevitability. The math is simple. If this hits, it resets everything. We're talking Chicxulub 2.0, or worse. You zoom closer. The rock has no malice, no emotion. It doesn't care. It simply is. And in that way, it mirrors time itself. Unstoppable, unbothered, unapologetic. You blink again, and now you're in a briefing room. NASA, or ESA, or some other acronym standing between Earth and cosmic erasure. The mood is tense. A new asteroid has been spotted, big enough to classify, big enough to fear. But there's time. Not much, just enough to plan. You listen as ideas fly. Kinetic impactor? Gravity tractor? Paint it white so sunlight nudges its orbit? Someone even mutters, Bruce Willis. No one laughs. There's talk of launching a nuke, not to explode the rock, but to push it off course, vaporize one side, change the trajectory. It's all theoretical, until it isn't. You step outside again, same Earth, same sky. Only now you know how fragile the balance is. Every breath we take depends on rocks not falling. Every memory, every city skyline, every family photo, contingent on cosmic silence. You walk through a field. There's a cow. It looks at you with indifference only cows can muster. It has no idea how many impact events its ancestors survived. It just chews. You keep walking, and now you're back in human memory. The Tunguska blast, within living generational memory. Chelyabinsk, you probably watched that video on a loop. You've seen the close calls. You've read about the dinosaur killer. You've traced craters older than nations. And you start to realize something. We're not the main characters here. Earth is resilient. It's been struck, scorched, drowned, frozen, and it keeps going. It doesn't need us. We're just the latest subplot. And if a big one comes, Earth will adapt, rebuild, rewrite. We just might not be in the next chapter. You stop walking, stand still, and look up again. The stars are silent, but they are not still.
Somewhere in Australia, you crouch beside a scar that nobody noticed for centuries. It doesn't look like much. A slight dip in the land, a ring of cracked rock, a patch of vegetation that refuses to grow the same way as its neighbors. But beneath your feet is a memory, one made of heat, shock, and stone. This is the Goss's Bluff crater, around 22 kilometers wide, with a raised ring at its center, a geological ripple frozen in time. You brush dust from a rock and feel the faint pulse of impact. This one, about 142 million years old. Just old enough that the planet forgot to scream about it. But here's the thing. Earth remembers differently than we do. It doesn't use ink. It uses pressure. Heat, metal fused into quartz grains, zircon crystals shattered at atomic levels, minerals twisted into unfamiliar forms, coesite, stishovite, born only under conditions more violent than volcanoes. Historians still debate how many craters we've missed. Erosion hides some, oceans swallow others, forests cover the rest. And sometimes, we don't even realize we're living in one. Like Chicxulub, or the Chesapeake Bay, or even parts of France. Right now, you're hiking through the Rhone Valley. Tourists sip wine and admire the hills. But those hills? Ancient impact scars. You tilt your head. The landscape doesn't look wounded, but it is. Earth heals in strange ways. Sometimes it forgets. Sometimes it pretends. You keep walking. Now you're in India, standing in the Deccan Traps. This is not a crater. This is lava, sheets of it, miles thick, layered over centuries. The timing? Suspicious. Some scientists argue that these eruptions, massive, relentless, were triggered by the same Chicxulub impact. Others say the lava came first, setting the stage for the extinction. Either way, the combination was lethal. And that's the real horror of extinction events. It's rarely just one thing. It's a domino setup built over millennia. An asteroid here, volcanism there, a weak magnetic field, a change in ocean currents, a burst of solar radiation. Then, click. One stone falls and everything tumbles. You think back to that crater in Australia. Now to the Yarabuba crater. This one might be the oldest. Over 2 billion years. Its story? A frozen Earth covered in glaciers. Then, impact. Boom. The ice melts. The planet warms. Life changes. You run your hand over a boulder and wonder, did that meteor save the planet? Or just throw another wrench into its ever-chaotic machinery? Either way, it reminds you of something crucial. Impacts aren't always apocalyptic. Sometimes they're catalytic. They stir the pot. You see this in biology. You're in a lab now, microscopes, petri dishes, blinking screens. Researchers analyze DNA patterns, extinction bottlenecks, bursts of diversification after cataclysms. The phrase they use? Evolutionary pressure. When life gets wiped, it doesn't just restart. It pivots, reboots. Weird species emerge in the aftermath. Fungi explode in population. Mammals start experimenting with body plans. Birds explode in variety. Life doesn't retreat from craters. It climbs out of them. And so do you. You're now in the Canadian Shield, rugged, ancient terrain. You stumble across another crater. Sudbury? No, this one's smaller. But it holds a secret. Nickel deposits, cobalt, resources that fuel our tech-driven world. Your smartphone? Your laptop? They contain atoms forged by impact. Your fingers dance across glass that only exists because of shattered Earth. And still, we forget. You sit on a rock and feel the wind. Somewhere in the distance, a train rattles by, hauling ore, no doubt. You wonder if anyone on it knows what crater their cargo came from. You bet they don't. Because most people never learn this part of history. We teach wars, kings, flags, but not the day the sky came down. Not the metal that whispered through the atmosphere before it screamed. Not the silence that followed. You lie back, staring at the sky through pines and clouds. And you think, how many more craters will the Earth collect before we're gone? How many will form after? Because here's the chilling truth. Impact events don't care if anyone is watching. They'll still happen. In silence, in fire, in cosmic disinterest. You close your eyes. The Earth hums beneath you. Still spinning, still scarred, still waiting. It's late now. Too late, maybe. You find yourself somewhere in Arizona, gazing into a hole in the ground that looks more like a trick of perspective than a scar. The light catches it just right, the rim casting long shadows, the base impossibly deep. This is Meteor Crater, also called Barringer Crater. It's modest by extinction standards, about 1.2 kilometers wide, only 50,000 years old. But it's pristine, well-preserved, practically a baby among planetary bruises. You stand on the rim, the wind scraping at your coat, and stare down into the bowl of it. And the weirdest part? It looks peaceful. Birds wheel over the rim, tour buses unload, people take selfies.
And just for a second, you forget that this perfect little circle was formed by an object moving at 12 miles per second, that it hit with the force of 10 megatons, that if it had landed anywhere near a population center, anywhere near, we'd have mythologized it for generations. Historians still argue over the psychological impact of craters, why we're so drawn to them, why we carve visitor centers into their edges, why we label them with plaques instead of prayers. But it makes sense. A crater is proof. Proof that space touched us once, that something unspeakably ancient found us and didn't miss. You run your hand along the rust-colored rail. Below, scientists once drilled into the crater floor, expecting to find a buried iron meteorite. They didn't. It had vaporized on impact. Just gone. You walk away slowly, boots crunching on gravel, and your mind returns to that word again. Gone. So much of our planet's history is written in what's missing. Dinosaurs, trees, layers of atmosphere, whole continents shuffled and crumpled like receipts in Earth's back pocket. You sit beside a rock and exhale. What would an alien archaeologist make of this place? They'd see the crater, scan the sediment, note the tool marks, and maybe, just maybe, they'd whisper, they knew. Because we do know, now more than ever. And yet, you're in a government office now. Not dramatic, beige walls, caffeine-scented carpeting. A report lies open on the desk. Planetary Defense Readiness 2035 Outlook. You skim it. Risk assessments, budget allocations, policy gaps. One phrase stands out. Insufficient global coordination in the event of sudden NEO impact. Translation? If the big one comes, we're still mostly guessing. You flip the page. Read about contingency shelters, backup food chains, communications protocols. All useful, all assuming you get warning. But what if you don't? What if the first sign is a blinding light, or a heat wave in midwinter, or a sound, low and constant, like a god sharpening a knife in the clouds? You're outside again, midnight, and the sky is unusually clear. You count stars, trace constellations, name a few you barely remember. And somewhere out there, somewhere you can't see, is a rock. Not the rock, just a rock, spinning, waiting. Statistically irrelevant, emotionally ruinous. You feel very small, but oddly not afraid. Because now you know what to look for. You remember the clues, the craters, the fire, the screaming metal, and the ash-drenched skies. You carry that knowledge with you like a talisman. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. You sit on a bench overlooking an empty field. There are no flashing lights, no sirens, just Earth, breathing, healing, humming its ancient song. And you close your eyes and hum along. You're alone now. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere old. The kind of place where even the wind seems to remember things. You lie on your back beneath a sky so clear it almost feels fake. The stars are sharp tonight, cutouts in velvet. You can see the Milky Way stretching across the heavens like a smear of spilled salt. And yet, there's tension in your chest. A knowing. Because you've just walked through 2 billion years of cosmic trauma, through silence and fire, through screaming rocks and vanished forests, through craters we mine and craters we fear. You've seen what the sky is capable of. And now, lying here, watching it smile down at you like an old friend, you can't quite trust it. It's beautiful, but it's also waiting. You think about all those events, the ones we named, the ones we forgot, the ones we never even discovered because the ocean drank them whole. You think about the Chicxulub crater, not just as a wound, but as a turning point, a reset button, a divine dice roll that ended the reign of titanic lizards and cleared the stage for mammals, for us. You are here because a rock killed them. That's not poetic, that's math. Historians still argue whether we're overdue for another mass extinction. Some say yes, some say we're already in one. Others whisper about the Great Filter, the idea that civilizations tend to end themselves before rocks even get the chance. You smirk at that. Bleak optimism. You sit up and look around. What if the next impact isn't extinction level? What if it just wounds the planet? What if it knocks out power grids, sends a tsunami racing inland, creates a refugee crisis, a global food shortage, a cascade of small collapses that slowly become something bigger? You shiver, not from cold, from clarity. Because space doesn't hate us, it doesn't know us, but it can erase us, just like that. You walk now, through a field of wildflowers. Each step pushes dew from the grass. Crickets trill in the background, oblivious to the sky's ancient roulette game. You pass a farmhouse, lights off, quiet. Inside, someone's sleeping, maybe dreaming. Of what? Certainly not of asteroids. And that's okay, because not everyone needs to carry this weight. But you'll remember. You'll remember that the sky once rained fire and metal and screaming, and that it didn't end the world. It simply changed it. Again and again and again. You'll remember that the stars are not just decorations, but destinations for extinction. You'll remember that every crater is a story, and that every story is a warning. You sit down on a stone and watch the first hint of dawn warm the horizon. And with it, peace. Not comfort, not safety, but peace. Because now you know. You've traced the wounds, heard the whispers, stood in the silence where forests once screamed. And you've survived. Maybe not forever, but for tonight, yes. So now, breathe. Let your chest rise and fall like the tides that once surged over shattered coasts. Let your heart beat slow. Let the sounds around you soften, the wind through leaves, the creak of a chair, the soft sigh of your own breath in the dark. The sky is still there, just beyond your ceiling. And yes, it holds fire, but it also holds time, and beauty, and the strange mercy of distance. The stars you see are old, some already gone. Their light only now reaching your eyes, soft, slow, forgiving. That light cannot hurt you. Not tonight. Tonight, you are safe. The world spins beneath you like it always has, bruised but resilient. And even the worst moments, those blasts of metal and fury, fade into dust and memory, into stories whispered under blankets, into awe. So, close your eyes. Feel the weight of your body sink into the mattress or couch or floor. Let the stories drift away. Let the sky grow quiet again. There's no meteor coming tonight. No screaming metal. No sky fire. No shockwave. Only silence. Only sleep. Only stars. Still watching, but not falling. At least, not yet. Good night.